It was the murder trial that gripped the nation nearly 2 decades ago and is once again in the spotlight as convicted killer Scott Peterson returns to court seeking a retrial. The Los Angeles Innocence Project reignited media interest in the case on Tuesday, placing the spotlight back on Peterson's 20-year-old murder conviction. Peterson received a life sentence after being found guilty of the murder of his 27-year-old wife, Laci Peterson, and their unborn child, whom they intended to name Connor. Peterson's death sentence was overturned in 2020, yet he continues to serve a life sentence. Despite this, he maintains his innocence, seeking a new trial in the hopes of clearing his name. The Los Angeles Innocence Project took up Peterson's case in January, filing a motion for DNA testing to possibly clear Peterson. There are 3 motions pending, including one for post-conviction DNA testing, specifically surrounding a van that was near the Petersons' home that was involved in a burglary at or near the time of Laci's disappearance. Peterson's attorney, Paula Canny, believes Laci's DNA was found on a mattress inside that van that had been set on fire. Peterson appeared via Zoom for today's hearing. No judgment has been made.
What if he's not guilty, okay? What if he had an affair and he was a crappy husband? But what if he didn't kill her?
Did you think this would be happening in 2024?
I did. I thought it was going to be happening in 2021. I sort of thought it would happen in 2015. I thought it would happen in 2010. I thought it would happen in 2003. I thought it would happen at some point. Scott Peterson has always said he was innocent. His family has always said he was innocent. There was always, this isn't new, that their theory was that Laci had been abducted by these meth head robbers in that neighborhood. And so the LA Innocence Project taking this case up corroborates as pretty good evidence that that organization, which only represents people who the project believes is innocent and can be exonerated by DNA evidence, has taken this up. And so there's 2 things that they want the court to order that they be allowed to DNA test. A van that's got a mattress in it that looks like it was blood stained, that looks like the van that was near the Peterson home that committed a burglary at or near the time of Laci's disappearance, and a hammer that was found at a burglary scene, and that's what they want DNA testing on.
How significant is it that the LA Innocence Project has taken this up and is representing Scott Peterson 20 years after the fact?
Super significant, but that's what we know about wrongful conviction. It takes a while for the evidence to sort of sort itself out. I mean, I remember standing out in front of this courthouse 20 plus years ago.
Mike Bellamissieri was one of the jurors in the Scott Peterson murder trial. He's curious about why the LA Innocence Project would take up Peterson's case.
My reaction when I was first told was, wow, that's interesting.
The LA Innocence Project is not revealing what, if any, new evidence they may have, but it may have something to do with this burned out van. In a new court filing by the Innocence Project, a former Modesto fire investigator told them at the time of Laci's disappearance, he was called to a suspicious van fire. Detectives were looking for information regarding a van associated with a burglary across the street from the Peterson home. Blood evidence was found inside the van. That fire investigator said this about the blood. I recall that once the presumptive test indicated positive for blood, the face of the evidence technician conducting the test went white, and everyone present at the evidence locker went ballistic. The people observing the test started getting onto their phones to report what they had found. I have been deeply troubled about what I viewed to be an insufficient investigation into the possibility of this vehicle fire being related in some way to the disappearance of Laci Peterson.
Good afternoon. I'm Elizabeth Cook in for Ryan today. Today's hearing comes just weeks after the Los Angeles Innocence Project took up his case. Peterson is currently serving a life sentence without parole for the murders of his pregnant wife, Laci, and their unborn son. Max Darrow is live outside the San Mateo County Courthouse with the very latest developments in all of this. Max?
Liz, more than 20 years later, this case continues to unfold. The court proceedings today were relatively brief, about 45 minutes or so. The judge really just set the stage for what will be a lengthy process as Peterson fights to overturn this conviction and prove his innocence. The judge set several dates for the prosecution and defense, and also 3 hearing dates that we will be watching closely. One in April, one in May, and one in July. Let's take you into the courtroom right now from the proceedings this morning. Peterson appeared via Zoom for today's hearing. He didn't really speak much outside of the formalities, saying things like, "Yes, Your Honor." He did appear pretty confident and collected, however. He's represented now by the LA Innocence Project. There are 3 big motions pending. The big one at play here is a post-conviction DNA testing request, specifically surrounding a van that was near the Petersons' home that was involved in a burglary either at or near the time of Laci's disappearance. A legal expert we spoke with after the proceedings wrapped up today says it's actually very significant that the LA Innocence Project took his case.
What if he's not guilty, okay? What if he had an affair and he was a crappy husband? But what if he didn't kill her?
That, like I said, she's just not very good at filling out forms.
Peterson's case has stretched on since the early 2000s. In 2004, he was convicted of murdering Laci, 8 months pregnant with their unborn son, Connor. In 2005, he was sentenced to death. But then in 2020, the California Supreme Court overturned Peterson's death sentence after an issue with jury screening from that original trial. In 2021, he was resentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. And then in 2022, he was moved off death row at San Quentin. We were back in court after that happened, as he and his defense team then pushed for a new trial based upon an allegation of juror misconduct. But after a series of hearings in 2022, a judge ultimately denied him relief and did not grant him a new trial. Fast forward almost 2 years later, now in 2024, we are back in a courtroom as he now makes this bid to try and prove his innocence. Janie Peterson, his sister-in-law, was present at the hearing today. She's been a fierce advocate, saying that her brother-in-law is innocent and has maintained that since the very beginning of this case, almost 20 years ago, or about 20 years ago. She did not speak to media, however, but Liz, this will be a lengthy process, and we'll be here as it unfolds.
Yeah, I mean, remember 20 years ago, Max, I don't think there's a person around the country or here in the Bay Area especially that doesn't remember the Scott Peterson case. You think about the documentaries, the podcasts, the books that have been written about it. No doubt it's going to continue to capture a lot of attention. I know you're going to stay on top of it.